Hello, friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have a wonderful guest for you. Her name is Dr. Donita McCants, and she is the founder and CEO of Dr. Donita's Veterinary Concierge Service in Orlando, Florida. Welcome to the podcast, Donita. I'm delighted to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I haven't met you before, so I'm thrilled to meet you.
I'm excited. I found your Instagram. I was like, oh, I love this. She does everything that I love to talk about.
Awesome. Well, then we'll have plenty to talk about because we're both on the same page, right?
Yes.
So I always ask everyone that podcasts with me to tell me their veterinary story. So all the veterinarians, I like to hear how they started.
Well, my story is similar to a lot of people in the profession. I wanted to be a vet since I was 5. I was a little kid, like most of us, I feel like. But I was playing with little birdies, and my mom saw me one time, like with little popsicle sticks, trying to help a little bird that was,
Fell out of the
fell out of a
nest.
tree or something
Oh,
like
that's
that. So
awesome.
yeah, so I have the cutesy little story where where it sparked. And eventually it led into, me enjoying science, of course, going throughout high school and college. And my mom's like, you don't have to become a vet just because you've always said you wanted to be a vet. But I was like, no, there's nothing else I really want to do. I like science. It's hard, but I enjoy it. And, all those things together created, becoming a vet. So definitely led me down the path. It was
And
always a
did
passion.
did people like your parents, did they encourage you and other people in school? Did you get encouragement? Because I find that sometimes veterinarians get discouragement from people as they're growing up because that, it's hard and all that. How do you feel?
No, my mom was always super encouraging. I came from a single parent household. My mom was working hard. She was also an entrepreneur, so I saw her.
Nice.
And she, told me like if that's what you really want to do, definitely she put me in all of the right little classes or going to help at the shelters, anywhere where I could get more exposure because I was a kid. So she wanted to help me get as much as I could. Back then, there weren't as many resources like there are now for kids, but she tried to put me in as much as she could when I was younger and get me exposed.
That's awesome to have supportive parents when you're
Yeah.
trying to do something big like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you well, you went to, where did you grow up? What city?
So I'm originally from I say Atlanta because that's where I was raised. I'm from Atlanta,
Okay.
Georgia.
Yeah.
But I was actually born into the military, so military brat.
Oh, so you
So
were
I
a
was
mover
born at Fort
arounder.
Bragg. Yes, yes. So I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We popped around a little bit. But we settled in Atlanta, so that's where I call home, where I went to high school and middle school and things like that. So that's where I was raised. So I went to University of Georgia for undergrad since I was in Georgia. And of course, they had a vet school. Everything I did was always strategic. So I went to UGA because they had a vet school there, and I wanted to get as much exposure. I was very much like super, one track mind. I was like, okay, I got to do this, and I have to do that. I think that's everybody in the vet world. We're very like
A
one
lot of
track
us,
mind,
right? Very
hmm
driven to goals.
driven, like see the goal forward. That's just kind of all of us. And then I went to Tuskegee for vet school in Alabama.
Oh, okay. So it was a little bit of a switch, but not
No, not too far. I was still
terribly.
pretty close to home, like only 2.5 hours. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And so then when you graduated from veterinary school, did you immediately decide to become an entrepreneur, or did you work for somebody for a while, or how did this, because you have your own business now, how did that
Right, right.
go?
So I always had the in the back of my head, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. When I was in vet school, I was in VBMA and I was in the classes and the courses, just trying to keep it there. When I was in undergrad, I did take a couple of business classes because I knew that that was a route I was interested in taking. I just didn't know in what capacity. Um, but yeah, so that was the route I took that way. Right out of vet school, I did not have an easy road. I had to go and live with my mom for the first 6 to 8 months when I got out of vet school because I didn't pass my boards.
Oh,
And I
that's
was,
happening a
yeah,
lot. That it seems like I hear
yeah,
that more and more that there's so many veterinarians that aren't passing their board on the first try.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't pass the first time, and then I took it the second time, and I didn't know that I didn't pass my boards until after I graduated. So then, that definitely had to steer my path a little bit because I did have an internship set up for
Yeah.
Miami because
Yeah.
my first goal was to become a surgeon. So I was like, I know I want surgery and I like business. So I didn't know what route I wanted to take, but I knew I enjoyed surgery too. So I had to pivot a little bit. My mom was very supportive again. She was like, just come here, relax. It's okay. It's definitely a humbling time, a humbling experience for me. Because I did have
Devastating,
to work.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I had a degree, but I couldn't use it. So I got a job as like a vet assistant just while I was studying. And I wanted to figure out why I couldn't pass my board. So I went and got tested, and I was diagnosed with attention deficit and generalized
Mm,
anxiety disorder. And I'm
wow.
like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense why I always struggled through college. I always thought I was a person that had to overstudy just because that was just something I naturally had to do, study long hours. But they were like, no, it's a way to study and what you need to do. So with just a little bit of medical help and some medicine and more testing time, I was able to get accommodations and just, I already knew the material. So I just studied a little bit more just to refresh everything, and they just gave me longer breaks. And then after that, I knew they gave it to me breaks where I could take it over 2 days instead of the whole long 6-hour test. So if
Yeah,
someone with
because that's
ADHD,
grueling.
like, just can't. So I'm like, I didn't realize that. I always struggle with standardized testing. So I knew that the board was going to be a really hard one for me because SAT, all of those, I just always struggle with that type of testing environment. But once I did that switch, I passed my boards like right after that. I knew after I left, I was like, I know I passed. Like I felt that I
Oh, you felt
passed
good
because
about it.
my stress
Yeah.
level, yeah, my stress levels were not there. I was really calm. The first 2 times I took it, I was stressed out, and I knew like my anxiety was really high. So just those minor adjustments, more breaks, I passed. So I'm a really big advocate for, like, if you feel like something's off, like, go find out, because there could be something that you can do, and you don't have to struggle through undergrad and vet school. You can get the help that you need so that you don't have to wonder, like, why am I struggling? Why am I not getting A's or B's when I'm working just as hard? It could be something going on.
Yeah. So how did you mentally get the strength, number one, to handle the disappointment? Because, when you have that goals, right? And something bad happens that devastates us, it's hard to lift ourselves back up. So how do you think you had that mental toughness, and like where do you
That
think?
was a hard one for me. It really was, because I was so used to just getting everything, on the first shot. Because,
Right.
I got into vet school on the first try,
Mm.
and everything was just, so easy to just get through. I worked hard and I studied hard, but getting to those next goals, it wasn't always that difficult. So I definitely was in a really low place at that time. It took me some time to come out of that, but I just kind of focused on myself. That's where I started to find more self-care at that time, because I wasn't doing a lot of that. So I started working out, meditating, taking better care of myself, eating better, because I wasn't in vet school anymore. And I had my son, who was young at the time. I had him when I was a junior in vet school. So I also had a
Oh,
child around this. Forgot to mention that I do have a son.
you did that hard too, right? Like I had
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
had
yeah.
classmates that were pregnant in vet school, and I was like, how do you have kids and get to work?
Yeah, that was a oops, but it was a good oops. But
It's
he
always it's
happened.
always a good oops, whether it's planned or not, right? But it is a challenge.
It was a challenge. So yeah, I had him as a junior. So that put on an extra stress level that I
Yeah.
forgot to mention. So that definitely didn't play an easy part in trying to get done, but I still finished on time, even though the board situation was a little rocky. But she helped me. I went and lived with her. She was living in North Carolina at the time. So after I passed my boards, that's when I got my first job, which a lot of people don't talk about that either. Don't take the first job. Don't just take the first job that you get.
Is
Like,
that what you did?
actually,
Did you take the first offer?
yeah, he was like, yay, yes, somebody wants me.
Yeah, and
But
that comes from an insecurity, right? Like you're insecure because you went through all this hard stuff, and you're like, I just got to get the job now, right?
yeah, but I
Um,
ended up switching jobs a lot right after that because I wasn't picking good positions. I was just trying to find a good home. And I think that's becoming more of a conversation as well. Like really when you're trying to find a position, like really, learn about the company, see if it's a good fit for you instead of just going like straight for the first job that you have. So
Yeah. Well, and that takes a certain level of thought and also kind of self-reflection, right? You need to know
yeah.
what you're looking for. So how did you do that? You said how many jobs did you go through?
Ooh. I worked at a private practice, a small private practice, but they only could do part-time. So I needed to find a full-time job. So I went from a part-time job to a full-time position, but some of the way they practice medicine wasn't in line with, quality for me. So I was like,
Right.
this is a little weird. I'm like, this isn't what I was taught. And I was like, I don't know about this. So I
Yeah,
was like,
you
let
don't
me
want to
try something.
compromise your ethics, right?
Right. So there was some unethical stuff, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna stay here. And then I ended up going to corporate, which I understand in corporate for a while, and then of course the corporate circle ended up in burnout. So yeah, that's kind of how my transition within that space. But then I ended up moving from North Carolina to Florida. So that's how I ended up in Florida. My mom moved to Tampa, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll. And then she was like, my mom, I'm an only child. So her only child, her only grandchild. She's like, you need to come here.
Yeah,
So
you want to be by grandma for sure.
so she's like, okay. I was like, okay, we'll come. So we ended up moving to Tampa. I ended up just transferring jobs because it was corporate. So I just transferred. And then eventually I started to get into that burnout cycle. And then I started reflecting on like, okay, my previous goals were like internship, surgery, so I started dipping with that idea again. So I went back to reapply to become an intern. And I did get an
Mm.
internship in Orlando. So that's how I ended up in Orlando because I
Oh,
transferred
okay.
and got an internship because I was going to go back to the surgery route because I wasn't sure yet on like the business part of things, but I knew surgery was still important to me. So I ended up transferring and getting a job as an intern, which was more difficult than I predicted because back in 2018, 2019, the pay was not what it is now for interns. And I couldn't really survive. It was barely like $23,000 or something crazy. Like
Ugh,
and I was already
not enough.
working. I had a car, I had a house. I'm like, I can't like
You had a toddler.
I had a toddler. I'm like, I have to take daycare. I'm like, this is not enough money.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
I literally couldn't keep it. And I loved it. I'm like, I will do the grunt work. I will do whatever you want me to do. I was enjoying it. I had a great time, but I couldn't stay just because I just couldn't afford it. So then I went back into the workforce again, I didn't go right in, I did relief. That's where I kind of found relief. And then I didn't go straight into a practice. I tried to find a place and I ended up back in another private practice. I was originally going to just partner in there because I knew business. I'm like, well, I'm going to go toward the business sector now. So that's where I started learning more about, practice management and what that looks like and learning how things run. And that didn't work out. So I was like, well, I'll just go on my own. And that's when I started thinking about mobile a little bit. Like, well, maybe I could do mobile because I was thinking about the overhead and I was listening to how much it cost for rent where they were. And I'm like, okay, that's a lot. So I was thinking about all the overhead and everything that it costs just to run in a little shopping center. They weren't even a big facility. It was a shopping
Right.
center. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
okay,
expensive.
it's expensive. So I was like, well, maybe mobile could be a good alternative because it's less overhead, a little less stressful. And I started dipping with the idea probably in like 2020 is when I was thinking about it. But then the pandemic hit and I was like, break.
And you don't want to go into people's homes because they're all afraid, right?
I just wasn't sure. And I was like, and I think a lot of people started doing mobile in 2020. So I should have just did it because I would have been like doing great, like, yay,
Right,
I'm
right.
rich. But I didn't. I just kind of took a step back because I just wasn't ready yet. I just didn't
Mhm.
have all my ducks in a row and I just wasn't ready yet. So I just put it on pause. And then I came back in August 2021. And then I started out of my car. I just went slower. Instead of just going all the way in with the van or a big truck, I just started out of my vehicle and I just got some supplies and I just started doing house calls.
I love it. And where'd you come up with the name? I love your name, Concierge Service.
I concierge because I was catering to the same clientele that I saw at the same practice that I worked at, and I was staying within that general area. So it's
Okay.
like a middle higher income area, like, country clubs and a lot of those type of people. So I was
Yeah,
like,
people that have the
okay.
money to pay for you to come to their house.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. I'm like, well, yes, exactly. So I knew that that was, kind of the what I was going for, like more that concierge level, high quality, first class. Our motto is actually first class doorstep pet care.
I
So
love
that was kind
that.
of the motto we were going with.
Yeah,
And it definitely took off because we're not, grossly like super high, but it's still a little bit more of a premium compared to a regular vet because you have to pay the house call. So but
right.
most
Well,
people
and
say
then
like you're not
you've got
paying
all the
more.
gas that you're paying to drive
Hmm.
around, right? What is your, do you have like a boundary
I
or would you
do.
go anywhere?
Yes, yes. I have a radius. So I
That's right.
currently
That's the word
service
I was
I
trying to
service
think
all
of.
the Disney people. Yeah, so I service Winter Garden. You probably know about Winter Garden because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
because I
I
was down
service
there a
like
little bit.
Winter Garden, like all the way on the side, like Claremont, and I work my way over to Windermere, Dr. Phillips, kind of working my way back that way a little bit. I'll
Nice.
go downtown a little bit, but I mainly service mainly West Orlando.
Wow. Yeah. I forgot about all the Disney people that must live there and have pets.
Oh my gosh. Everyone, I haven't been in a house in Winter Garden that doesn't have something Disney
Disney
related. I look
related.
around, I was like, oh, they have nothing in here that's Disney. And then I see like a dog bowl that has like Mickey ears or something. And I'm like, there it is.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So practically speaking, now you have a van. Do you have like a
Yes.
technician that travels with you? Do you have employees?
Yes.
Just in case
Yeah.
somebody out there is thinking about doing something like this.
Yes. So originally I started with my fiance. He was my tech with no experience. So
Yeah, I think we've
he
all
was
done that. I used to drag my husband down for emergencies in the middle of the night. Just hold this dog.
So he was my original tech when we didn't have a lot of money to have a tech, but now we have a technician. I have a virtual receptionist, and I have a virtual assistant who also helps me with scribing when I'm at homes because she'll be on video and listening. So she'll scribe and she'll help me with emails and requests from people and things like that.
That sounds great. How do you like being an entrepreneur?
I love it. Now that we've kind of got everything figured out, the reason I started the business in the first place was definitely self-care because I was burning out and I was getting exhausted. So I started it because I wanted to have more time for my family, and my son, and have a little bit more flexibility on when I wanted to work. So definitely the van added on a little bit more overhead, of course, than just compared to out of my car, but overall the overhead is still much lower than if I was in a facility.
Yeah. And are you doing surgery from the van as well?
Yes, yes, we have a full surgery suite.
Nice.
We have a X-ray unit. We also have some of Bax's blood machines on there too.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So, anything else you want to tell me about your business? Because I'm going to change subjects, I think, and I don't want to pull you off.
Well, no, that's pretty much it. We're doing good. We're hitting our 2-year anniversary in August. So that's
Congratulations.
cool. It was scary the first year. We definitely had a couple of hurdles for sure, but it's been worth it. We're
Yeah.
enjoying it.
So tell me about, well, I'm going to stay on the subject, I guess, then. Tell me about the fear, because that's what keeps us from doing a lot of things in life. That, oh my gosh, what could happen? Like, how did you deal with that
Yes.
fear of starting out on your own and all of the minutia that you have to do to make it legal and that's all confusing. So
Yeah.
how did that go for you mentally?
Mentally, I was more scared when I was thinking about it the first time, because I didn't have as much support because it was just me and my son. I really think a big part of it was my fiance at the time. Now, my boyfriend became fiance, but he was willing to help me, and that support. I didn't have a big support. I had my family, but someone right there to help me. Just the little stuff like just picking up my son or being able to just help in those ways. I think that's what stopped me from going right in the first time, just because
Right.
I just wasn't sure about, how things were going to go.
If you had just
But no,
backup.
yeah, I had a backup, and I think that really played a big part in me just going for it because I had support system.
Yeah. That's great. I think that that's definitely true. Everybody needs somebody,
Yeah,
whether it's a fiance or a boyfriend or a parent or somebody to kind of
yeah,
give you that
help.
like safety net a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, that was a big part of it. And I'm very much a risk taker, so that that plays a part. I'm a risk taker for sure. I mean, I went zip lining when I was pregnant with my son in Nicaragua, so yes, I'm definitely a risk taker for sure.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. I was doing what was I doing? It was my first time doing spays and neuters because they have the little spay neuter program in Nicaragua. So I was doing that for a summer or spring break or
And then you
something.
were pregnant and they said, "Hey, you want to go ziplining?" And you were like, "Yeah, I'm
Yes.
in."
Yes.
I love that. Well, that's like an inbred quality in you then, that you're driven and
Yes.
that you're a risk taker.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so talk to me then.
I think the resiliency definitely plays a part because I went through so much.
Yes.
I'm definitely resilient. So I'm like, I've been through a lot at this point. So I can handle whatever is thrown. So
Yeah, and that's a really good mental state to be in and to hang on to that thought that I can handle anything.
yes.
Yeah, so tell me about the self-care because everybody out there, that's what I talk about a lot. How to take care of
Yes.
yourself mentally, emotionally, physically. Tell me about that for you. Like, what does that mean?
Yes.
What do
That's
you
my
do?
favorite subject actually. I
Okay,
love talking
go.
about
Ready, go.
yes, I love talking about self-care. So for me, self-care, it starts with, one, at the end of the day, I always tell vets and other people, you have to find a way to like release the day because we go through so much, whatever different things are coming and piling on and whatever mean things someone might say to us, we have a tendency to hold on to a lot of the things that people say or do and whatever it is because we're empaths. That's just who we are naturally. We're vets. We love animals. We're just loving and empathic people. So we hold on to a lot of things. And I do too, but I think the part that makes me a little stronger with that part is I find a way to release the day. Whatever it is I'm mad about, I'm gonna vent, I'm gonna complain, whatever it is you need to do, but at that moment, you have to just let it go. We can't hold on to everything. And I think the buildup of holding on to every bad thing that happens, every euthanasia, everything that happens to us leads to the mental breaks and the anxiety and the depression and the suicide, all the things that are plaguing us right now. We hold on to everything and we have to find a way to deal with that. And then have an outlet, having an identity outside of vet med is really, really important. My identity is fitness. My secondary life, I am like a part-time bodybuilder, so that is my outside secondary
Like,
life. Yes,
I need
yeah,
you to train me.
yeah. So that's my secondary life is bodybuilding and
I love it.
fitness. Yeah. So I didn't have an identity outside of vet med. Like a lot of us were like, so like I said, we're hyper focused on becoming a vet, and then I get out of vet school and I'm like, who am I? I'm a vet. Okay.
And that's not
Now what?
enough, right? It's not enough
Right.
because that's your job. It's not your,
Yes,
and I think we
yes. And I'm
forget that. It's so wrapped up in our DNA and our identity. Like, that's who I am.
right. I'm like, but that's not who you are. You are
Right.
a vet, but that's
Yeah,
not
that's your
who you
job.
are. Exactly. And a lot
Love
of
it.
us we don't have another identity. I'm mentoring a pre-vet student right now and she's getting ready to apply to vet school. And I was just telling her, I'm like, what is your identity outside of becoming a vet? She was like, I don't have one. I'm like, you need to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good piece of advice because we do get so wrapped up in it. I mean, when we're kids, we have a lot of interest, but then when we get on that vet school track, we just like hone in and I think too much to our detriment. And then when we graduate, we hone in on getting the job and doing the job and taking care of the patients. And yeah, we lose ourselves.
We lose ourselves. And I didn't realize that. I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And then I'm in the middle of burnout and I'm like, well, what now? Like now, we don't want to do it anymore. We're like leaving the profession. And I think that was a big part of me starting the business too, is like, that was a way for me to love vet med again, find my enjoyment in it again. Like we have to find a way to enjoy vet med and then still enjoy our lives, and finding a way to balance the two. It's never going to be a perfect balance, but we have to find a way to balance it in a way where we're still taking care of ourselves and we are still people. We're not just doctor whoever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So what about the weightlifting? Tell me a little bit about that. That's fascinating. Do you like
Yes.
compete?
Yes, I did
You
my first
do?
I did, yeah. So I did my first competition June of 20. It was right before I started the business. So that's kind of why things got rocky after that.
Yeah,
So
that's
I did my
awesome.
first competition June 2021. And then I started the business in August. So that's kind of where things kind of fell in line there. But I lost 70 pounds for the show. I've never been that small in my entire life, but it's definitely grueling. A lot of cardio. By the time I was getting ready to do the show, I was doing like 2 hours of cardio. Food was pretty low, drinking lots and lots of water. It was definitely a really fun experience. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but I enjoy it. I enjoy lifting weights. It's definitely my way of releasing the day, just going to the gym and just enjoying it and just being there, just having, that's your moment. We're parents, we're all these things for everybody, but we have to give something to ourselves. And I always tell people, self-care isn't selfish. It's not selfish to want to have a moment for yourself, whatever it is. If it's just, taking a bubble bath or going to the gym for an hour. I feel like as women and moms, we get guilty because we want to do something for ourselves and, take a minute where we're not doing something for everybody else.
Yeah. So how do you balance that with the mom guilt?
Oh man. He's
We all
pretty
have that, right? Like I know how I
he's
did it.
he's self-sufficient now. He's almost 10, so he's just kind of like an old man now, but
He's an old soul
he doesn't need me anymore. But
at 10. He's a young gentleman, huh?
yeah, he doesn't need me anymore. But him
Oh,
and him and Joseph are thick as thieves, so that helps a lot because they're really close. But when it was just me and him, it wasn't as easy to just find the time for myself. My
yeah.
mom helped a lot for sure. Just honestly having a support system, having people that are there for you it really plays a big part,
And the thought that you're worth it. It's
Yes,
important. I think
it
sometimes we
is.
forget how important that is to making us a strong human and then a strong parent, you know?
Exactly.
Like I know if I hadn't done all the things I did while my kids were growing up, personally, I'd have been a bad mom, even though it meant leaving them at times and
Yes.
going traveling or going, to the gym.
Yeah, I definitely felt guilty when I was getting ready for the show because
Yeah,
I was gone a lot when it was getting close because I was always
right.
at the gym. I was doing all this cardio. I was always gone. So I did feel really guilty during that time because I was at the gym so much
Yeah,
during that time. But afterwards I was like, okay, he was fine, but it still bothered me a little bit.
yeah.
Sometimes like, mom, like,
They
well,
complain. Yeah. Don't you
yes.
think on some level though, when you do something that cool, because that's super cool that you did the
Yeah.
bodybuilding thing and then you went and like showed it off and competed, right? Like that's
Yeah.
a lot of chutzpah and guts. So
Yeah.
don't you think that demonstrating that to your son, like he saw that and he'll remember that. He'll be like, my mom's so cool. She did a bodybuilding thing. Like I think there's
Yes.
something that's really good for kids in seeing their moms achieve.
They do. And and then he started to want to learn how to lift weight. So that was a new thing. Yeah. He was like, I want to learn how to, be big and
Yeah.
strong. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you've got something in common that you can do together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that. So anything else about self-care?
That was pretty much it. That's mainly what I harp on. I spoke about it at Fetch in Charlotte, whenever that was back in
Awesome.
March. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was what I spoke about, but it was more or less for business owners
Yes.
specifically that need to make better choices or find other ways to make those adjustments so that they can have self-care, which is time management. So it was definitely a lot of time management focus, because when I started the business, I didn't have a lot of time. So that's a big question. Like, how do you say you want self-care, but you're a business owner? There's no way you have time. But it's hard, but finding alternatives, like when I told you, about the receptionist and the vet assistant and the virtual assistant helping me, all of those things helped me as well, so that when I get done and I'm done for the day at 5 o'clock, I'm done for the day, because we've been working on everything throughout the day, versus before, when I first started the business, I would come home and now I have admin and now I have emails and now I'm still working until like 9 o'clock at night. So
Yeah.
that definitely plays a part of time management and finding ways. I use technology a lot. I'm big on using technology, the apps, and everything's pretty virtual, and all these ways for me to use technology to have better time management is what I usually like to tell practice owners and other people in the field that are looking to, potentially go this route.
So if you find yourself struggling with time management, one of the ideas is to hire it out. Like get an assistant, and there's plenty of
Yes.
ways to do
And
that
it's not
now.
as expensive as you think. Like that was my thing. I was like, I can't afford this, but the virtual assistant isn't very expensive at all. To just help you with just even starting there, because it's not that expensive. Just starting to help clean out your email. You don't realize how stressed out you get when your emails are not dealt with.
I was just doing that this morning when you contacted me. I was sitting right there going through emails, and I hate it. It's like one of
It
my
just
least
messes with your
favorite things.
head. I'm like, I
It
need to get through
is.
these emails. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just little things like that, just to give you like breather, like, just go through the emails, respond to people, like just those little bits will just really make a difference with your day.
Yeah. So this is kind of in the same realm, and maybe you've already answered this question, but you struggled with burnout and you overcame it, and now you're doing well in your career. What advice do you have for people out there that are feeling really burned out, really stuck in their career? Because those are the people that oftentimes reach out to me for coaching, which I love, because that's my
Yes.
advice. It's like, get somebody to help you figure it out. But what is your advice? Like, what is your burnout? I know one of them is finding something to do, right? Like the weightlifting.
I would say rediscovering what you really want to do in vet med, or
Mm.
just advocating for yourself with your practice. If you still like, hey, I love where I work, it's just how it's going isn't working for me. And I think sometimes we're just scared to ask or say, hey, I need to make an adjustment. I need to change my schedule. Something needs to be done, because they don't want to leave. They don't want to lose you. Right now, the workforce is scarce. So you don't realize that you have the leverage right now, because they need you to be there. And I know it's really hard, but we have to make those cuts in the schedule. And I'm a person, like, I want to make the money. Obviously it's a business, but I have no problem cutting my schedule a little bit, like looking to say like, hey, financially it's okay for us to take a half day today. It's going to be all right. And I think in private practice, you have a little bit more flexibility with that type of, communication, because they'd rather keep you than lose you. So if you like, hey, I need Mondays off, or I need to come in on a half day. We need to have someone, cover the mornings. I think we need to be a little bit more creative in the
Yes.
vet space with our scheduling, because we're just so used to the 8 to 5:30. It's just, it's just really exhausting. And for me, I'm usually done by like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Like I'm done.
Well, and that's ideal when you have kids, right? Because they're getting out of school, and then you're
Yeah.
out. I have several of the veterinarians that I coach, that I said, just tell them you need to get out at 3 because you want to be
Yes.
home with your kids. I'm like, that's doable. Can you start
That's
earlier?
doable.
Could you do weekends more? Like there's lots of ways to bargain with your bosses to try to get what you want. And I think many people are afraid that they'll say no.
They're afraid.
And if they do say no, then you have a different decision to make, right? Do you want to stay or not? But I
Right.
really do think you're correct that most bosses, and because I know I did it for years, when my employees would come to me and say, well, I need this day off, or I need to get off early this day because I have a class I want to go to, or whatever it was, I was
Yeah.
very open to trying to make that work, even though it's hard as an owner to make those adjustments sometimes because you feel like,
Right.
well, if I let this person get off early, then I have to let this
Yeah.
person get off early.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
kind of have to like have the conversation with your team as well, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't ask, then you'll never know. So
That's
that's
absolutely true. And most people aren't going to get fired by asking. I
no,
think sometimes we're
no,
afraid, oh, they might fire me. It's like, no, they won't. As long as you
no.
ask it in a kind way and you don't demand. Like if you go in there pounding
Right.
your fist on the desk demanding, it's
Yeah.
not
Like
gonna go
I'm
well.
fed up. Like, no.
Yeah, then it's not going to go well. But if you just say, look, I really want to spend more time with my kids. What can we do? Here's my idea.
Right.
Here's your idea.
Yeah.
Is there a way to kind of make it work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
love
know it's been really hard. Like some of my classmates, they're struggling working at practices where there's just not enough staff, or then you feel guilty because you want more time,
that.
and but then you can't really give your best to this practice if they've already lost two doctors and now you're getting ready to burn out too. So it's like, what are we gonna do? We
Right.
have to either get more doctors and give them less hours so that everybody can win. And I think practices will probably do a better job with getting more doctors to stay on staff if they're not like, oh my God, I got to work 40 hours. I think everyone's just really in this like self-care over job space right now. So I think that's making it really hard, even for me, with trying to get employees. It's not that it's a bad thing because I'm definitely all for it, but we have to make adjustments on what people want now and how to make that work. Like it might equal you need a bunch of part-time doctors to make
Mhm.
sure you have enough.
Right.
And if that means adjustments in, compensation packages, then that's just differences if you're a part-time doctor, you might not get, full-time benefits. It's just you have to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's so true. So I read in one of your bios somewhere, it might have been on your website, that you have a big belief in giving back to your community.
Yes.
What does that mean? Like, what does that mean for you? I know what it means for me, but what does it mean for you?
I've realized that lately, I give back in different ways, but I realized lately what brings me the most joy is giving back to children. I
Mm,
love giving back to kids. Like I've given back to, the homeless community a lot in Orlando. I've given up my time and helped one of our foundations here, Matthew's Hope, where I did free exams.
nice.
And we did free exams, and I got one of the companies to help provide me some free vaccines so that I can do vaccines and exams for lower income areas. So I've done that a few times in the
Nice.
community. But I love, love, love speaking to kids, especially like pre-vet, like that age, like middle school age. I went down, if you know about the Vet for a Day program with the Critter Fixers, Dr.
Oh
Hodges.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
going
yeah.
around with,
I've seen them on TV.
yeah,
I've never met them in person. I need to have them on
yeah.
the
So
podcast.
yeah, you should get them. They're hilarious. So
I bet.
yeah, so I guess Zoetis is funding this foundation's program that they're doing called Vet for a Day. So
Nice.
they're doing a tour all over America in different cities where they're going and, showing kids in the community like between the age 12 to 15 and doing like a Vet for a Day type of program. So I helped them with the one that they did in Fort Lauderdale at Dr. Jones's hospital, Dr. Stephanie Jones. Um, she has a foundation that helps with helping the community and children too. So I went down there. I actually drove the van like 3 hours because I'm like, oh, the children. the
The children will get you to do anything, right? Especially when you're a
children.
mom. You have a soft spot for kids when you're a mom, right?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's a drive, because I thought she was closer, and she's like, no, we're in Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, oh, okay,
I love it.
all right. I
I guess
committed to
that's what
it.
I'm doing.
Yep. So we drove it down 3 hours to the event, which was really, really nice. The kids were super excited. So they did like little stations where they saw surgery, and they did like little wet labs and stuff. And I gave them tours of the facility, the little virtual, so they could see like different aspects of vet med, and they,
Nice.
could learn. And we all spoke a little bit about our stories and how we started. And I always look at the children, I look at the audience, and then when I look at the kids, they all kind of have that little, that mud face like kids do, like, and
This
then
is boring. This is boring.
yes, I'm like, okay. And then so I started talking to them about like my story and, you know, my struggles when I was telling you about ADHD and the things that I struggle with. And I'm like, if you're a kid in that age where you're having a hard time with your grades, and then I saw them start to perk up like, yeah,
They could relate, right? They could relate to
yeah,
you. Because I
yeah. They
don't
were like, yeah.
kids don't always relate to adults, especially probably doctors. They think it's too much of a separation. But when you start
Hmm.
talking about ADHD and that kind of thing, they're like, "Oh, I experienced that. I know what that is."
Yes. I'm like, if you're struggling with your grades, like it's possible, like just giving them the hope that, hey, you know, I didn't have a perfect track, but I did it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they're interested. And they want to hear more. They're like, oh wow. And I saw their little eyes start to light up. And I was like, okay,
Now they're
we're getting
listening.
somewhere with the children.
It's starting to sink in. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So then,
Well,
yep.
and
So then the parents,
you're
yeah.
offering them like the possibility that they can also do it.
Yes, exactly. And a couple of the parents, it's always good because the parents came up, they're like, oh my God, thank you for being so honest and transparent. Like they need to hear that. My
Right.
daughter's struggling with that. And they really, you know, they appreciate that, you know, telling them that they can do it. I was like, oh, like the children. Yeah. So
Yeah, that touches your heart.
yeah,
And I think on
yeah,
some level, doing that kind of work really fills you up. Like that
it
helps with
does.
burnout. That helps when you help
Yeah.
someone else. And there's actually studies on this. If you do something for other people, just out of the goodness of your heart, that can help you with gratitude. It can help you with stress and burnout, just kind of getting outside yourself. And so that's basically
Right.
what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
volunteering. So when I'm in Florida in the winter, let me know and I'll come do some of that stuff with you. I
Yes,
can
of
give
course.
vaccines and I can do all that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
That'd
enjoy
be
it.
fun. Yeah, that's amazing. So that's part of your mission as well with your business
Yes.
is be,
Yes.
is being
Yes.
I don't know, what do you call it? Like not a figurehead. What do you call it as an example? You're making yourself an example to the children to try to show them what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool. All right, so let's see. Tell me, before we get too close to the end, I think
Okay.
I've asked you a lot of things. Tell me about Ask Dr. Danita. I read that on your,
Oh, yes.
what's
So,
that? Is that
yeah.
social media?
So Ask Dr. Danita was my blog page that I started
Nice.
in 2019. So it started as a blog just as information to give client communication and, you know, pet parents just more experience on like different things. And
Yeah,
back then I was just showing a lot about cases and just general information, things that I think people already know about. And then I posted, they're like, oh, I didn't, you know,
I
the
didn't
things
know
that we
that.
think that
Yeah,
they already know, they
I
really
don't.
don't know. I was like, okay, well, I'll just post some general stuff. I'll post some, you know, cool surgeries, different things like that. So they really enjoyed it. Or I would post, like people would send me DMs or ask me questions, and then I would, you know, answer those questions. So that's pretty much how the page started. And I knew, of course, my little entrepreneur brain is always thinking in the background, like eventually, if I do start a business, I'll kind of already have like a little bit of a following. So
Right,
that is
right.
actually what happened. A lot of my clients that were with me at the private practice, they followed me because they were already following my social media page. So
Nice.
when I transitioned into the business, they didn't have to go looking too hard because they already knew
They knew where
how
you
to find
were.
me.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a way I was like, just in case some people really want to come along, they know how to find me. So that was where it started. So we have Instagram, we have a Facebook page. Now we have like a TikTok. Um, Twitter's Twitter's hard. I don't do a lot of
Yeah,
Twitter,
Twitter is
but
hard. I post some of my blogs on there, but I don't think people go there to read blogs. They
no,
go there
not
to
really.
fight. They go there to
Yeah,
fight
yeah. So
about things.
I don't really do Twitter. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, but now the big new thing is YouTube. We're starting a YouTube channel. We've been trying to start YouTube forever, but you know, YouTube is just
YouTube
it's a
is
little bit more
hard. Yeah,
time
I have a YouTube.
consuming.
Well, and I have a YouTube channel. It's just hard to get people to subscribe to it. You know,
Yeah, and
because they
everyone
know.
wants like quality, like YouTube is all about quality videos
Yeah,
and high def and stuff. So I was like, okay, this requires a little bit more planning and money. So
Yeah.
now we're in a place financially where I hired one of my clients he was my client. Now I became his client because he's a videographer.
That's
So
awesome.
he did a couple of like little videos for me, and we're like, hey, and then we started talking a little bit about YouTube. He's like, I can help you with that. I was like, okay. So we're gonna start the YouTube channel. We're gonna start filming in next month. He's gonna follow me a little bit because I started it, but I didn't make any good videos, so I just
Right.
didn't post anything on it.
Right.
So it's gonna be, the adventures of, Dr. Nita Mobile
Yeah,
Vet, and
that's awesome. And
yeah,
then
he's
you're
gonna
probably going to end
follow.
up on Animal Planet or something with the critter
I
fixers.
know.
You're
It's
going to have
like,
your own show.
okay. I was like, just kind of like the vibe of like everyone else, but no one really, there's no mobile, of course. There's nothing mobile at all.
Right, right.
So that's
So
definitely its
you're
own lane. It's its own lane. So that'll be definitely something new that we haven't really seen in the vet world or on
That's
YouTube and
amazing.
stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited. He has really good quality. So I'm excited about the quality
See
because I
what
know
he'll
that
do.
YouTube is all about quality videos. So he's a
Yeah.
videographer.
Yeah. So he'll get it right for you. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So what have I not asked you that you either wanted to talk about or that we missed?
No, I mean that's pretty much me. I'm really laid back. Um what's I think what stands us out as a business and just as a company and I think we're always really open and inviting, and we just, where you can tell like we're just genuine and we're just trying to help the community. I think the biggest for me is that I'm in doing it out of love and enjoyment, and I'm finding a new way to love vet med, and I was like, okay, yes, I'm making money, but like I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. And my clients, they know, like they were like, please don't leave, because they know I'm really laid back, and I'm like, I'm here because I want to,
Right.
not, and I'm really selective with my clients too. I know that was a big thing for me when I started the practice. I'm like, I was big about vibes and good people and no angry people, no yelling,
Yeah. You don't want to
none
be
of
at
that.
anybody's home if they're weird, right?
Yeah, I was like, none of that weird stuff.
Yeah. I
No.
used to do I used to do for my practice house calls quite a bit. And it's a whole different animal. Like it's so
Mhm.
different when you walk into someone's home
It's
and it
personal.
is.
It has to
Very
be good.
personal. Yeah.
Mhm.
You have to have a strong relationship.
Yes. So
Which is
that's my
really
favorite part. It's a lot of relationship building. We happen to take care of your pets, but it's a lot of relationship building. And a lot of people in the vet world, they kind of steer away from that relationship building, but they're starting to realize like you have to.
it's that bond, that human
You
animal
have
veterinary
to.
bond that's
You
so
have
important.
to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you
Hmm.
do it in the right way, it's so rewarding. Like
Yes.
some of my best memories are from clients that I've gotten a really good relationship with over the years. And then
Yes.
either something really good happens or something really bad happens. Whatever it is, it's just that personal, they're so
Yes.
grateful. They're so
Yes.
happy to have you when they need you. It's
Yes.
so rewarding. And I love that you said love veterinary medicine because that is my goal. I want everyone to love it because it's so,
Yes.
I'm just
Yes.
I'm just all about that. So I'm really glad you said that you
And it's
love it.
hard because there's been so much negativity around vet med right now.
We can
So
fix that.
just, yeah, yeah. So that's my mission, like your mission. We don't want to hate vet med anymore. We have to find a way to love it in a different way.
That's the title of my book that's coming out soon.
Oh,
Love your veterinary life. That's the title because
yes,
I want people to
yes,
love it. And
yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy. It takes work,
No,
right?
right.
Like there's work involved to loving it, but it's so possible. And I just love that you are so passionate about what you're doing and about helping people and offering vet med to the community. Like it's all amazing stuff. And that's what makes it fun.
Yes. Yeah, because I can give back and I can say, hey, we're gonna just take half of our schedule today and we're gonna give back, and that's okay. That's not something I could do, you know.
As an employee or yeah, being an entrepreneur
Right.
gives you a little bit of power, doesn't it?
Yeah.
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 So before we wrap up, tell people where they can find you if they want to know more. They can always email
Yeah.
me, but tell them your website and all of that. So if they want to check you out, they can.
Yes. Yeah, so if you want to find me, you can definitely follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Ask Dr. Donita. That's AskDrDonita. Same thing for LinkedIn. If you put that in, you can probably find me across the board on there. Website, all of it is the same, askdrdonita.com or at Gmail, whatever avenue, everything's pretty consistent.
Awesome. I love it. Well, let me know next time you do any like charity outreach there in Orlando.
Okay.
If it's in the winter when I'm not in Michigan, I'm in
Winter?
Florida.
Okay. Usually I try to do stuff in the winter because it gets really hot. So I will let you know for sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to volunteer and help you out. That'd be great. A
Yeah.
lot of
No, I
fun.
appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. Okay, I really appreciate you and I loved meeting you and I love talking to you. And maybe we'll do this again if we come up with a subject that we're both passionate about. We can get on here again and talk because
Okay.
it's been fun meeting you and getting to know you.
Oh, thank
So
you.
this is Dr. Donita McCants, and I just want everyone to go check her out and all the things she's doing. It's really fun. So I appreciate everyone listening today, and have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye, Donita.
Bye. Have a good one.